Hello everyone, I'm Joe Teenage Astronaut, and welcome to today's episode of Rapid Space History. Today's episode is definitely going to take that name of Rapid, as it will likely be around 5 minutes long. Today we are talking about the T-38, which, if you don't know, is the plane used by NASA to train the only astronauts from Mercury to Apollo, and to take astronauts from site to site. Some of that is still used today, in fact. But let's get right into the history of my favorite plane. In 1954, the United States Air Force in Northrop, not Northrop Grumman yet, just Northrop, began the development of a new training aircraft, as these had commonly been used for a while and were very useful. At the time, the lucky T-33s were from the 1940s and were greatly outdated. Because at this time, airplane technology was, every 5 years, something from 5 years prior was completely outdated. It's not like space stuff today, or stealth aircraft, where, every, 5 years you have to have something new because its technology has evolved. So at the time, the airplane being used was called the N-156. The N-156 would eventually evolve into the T-38 Talon, or as I recall for this episode, the T-38. It was to replace the T-33s, like I said earlier. At first, North American Aviation, the same company behind the Apollo capsule, was being considered for the contract, but in the end, Northrop got it because those was just cheaper, and could probably actually have a lot more than the North American Aviation proposal. The first T-38s entered operation in 1959, 4 years after the program began. But before we talk about NASA's use of them, because that's a bit of a subject, we are actually going to talk about the original reason the T-38 was built: military use. The air forces of multiple countries used the T-38 for training pilots and supporting other planes, and also testing those planes. It is also actually very commonly used in escorting of test craft or that kind of thing. It's also commonly used as a chase plane. Some of the countries that use the T-38 is the United States, obviously, Germany, Portugal, Turkey, and China. Now, though, let's get on the part that I really want to be talking about, and that is NASA's use of the T-38. NASA operates in total 32 T-38s, which is actually one of the biggest fleets of the T-38, only being beaten by the United States Air Force. NASA uses them for training astronauts. It has for ages. It doesn't really use them for training astronauts that much anymore, as you've had better technology come up for doing that, but all the way up until really the Space Shuttle program, they were being used for training astronauts. What they do still sometimes use them for, though, is transporting astronauts. That's commonly been a thing. It was also a chase plane. It's been a chase plane for a while. It was really a chase plane during the Space Shuttle era, though. Which reminds me, during the Shuttle era, a tradition had come up of astronauts, the Space Shuttle crews, arriving to KSC, or the Kennedy Space Center, in T-38s. Which, NASA had traditions for ages, right? It had the breakfast, right? And that kind of stuff. And they wanted a new special one for the Space Shuttle era, and for a while didn't know what to make it. But after the first couple of flights, when the astronauts had all gone to KSC for their flight in T-38s, somebody had the brilliant idea that becoming a tradition. Which it did. And it was that way for a while, and then once the shuttle ended, though, and that officially ended the shuttle era, that kind of stopped, as you had much better ways. People coming in different aircraft, people driving, people in commercial flights, just stuff had changed, and you'll have that happen. But also, T-38s are very expensive. NASA spends on average $20 to $30 million a year just operating and maintaining its fleet of T-38s. So they don't want to put any of those at risk of breaking because it's really expensive. Now on to the kind of sad part of today's episode, which will be the future of the T-38. In 2010, the Air Force launched a new program called the TX program, which had the main goal of replacing the T-38, not because they were bad, but because they were simply old and very expensive to keep running. Multiple companies bid on it: Boeing, Rolls-Royce, Lockheed Martin, and a couple others. In the end, though, Boeing won with the Boeing Saab T-7 Red Hawk concept. More plane, though. Yeah, a couple of those are pretty good. In the end, none of them won. By the way, if you're wondering, this is what it looks like. I kind of think it's cool, but that's just me. Some people may disagree. Sadly, we don't have a lot of time left for the T-38s being a big thing for the Air Force, as the Air Force plans to begin phase out of its T-38s in 2023, which is next year. We're getting pretty close to that date. But as far as I can tell, NASA has not made any plans to phase out its T-38 fleet, which means, as far as we can tell as of right now, NASA will keep its T-38s flying for the foreseeable future, even though eventually, maybe after the Air Force is used to Boeing Saab for a while, I could totally end up seeing NASA beginning their own fleet of that. And that's actually what happened with the T-38, is NASA for a while didn't have any of its own special training aircraft, until after the T-38 had been used by the military for a while, and then it picked up the T-38. Well, wrap up space history, right? I hope you all enjoyed the general history of the T-38. There were some things I didn't talk about, like, for instance, accidents involving them, or things like that, and that's because I actually have a video coming up soon that is an actual SSBTA video that will be about incidents involving test flight, test pilots, test pilot schools, and that kind of thing. I have a series coming up on that. And we'll have an episode talking about accidents involving planes, like I will bring news during heavy testing, including the T-38. So that's why I didn't talk about any of that. But, again, this is just general history to actually, the next couple of episodes of Rapid Space History will be trying to set up background knowledge, so you guys will get to be able to know for sure some things I'll be talking about in future episodes of Space Stuff for Teenage Astronaut. And that series will actually be starting in mid-June, once I am out of school and can put a lot more time into the show. Because something you may notice is I have, like, a weird pattern going on with the show. Well, I have times of low activity and times of high activity. And those times of low activity commonly will be when I have a high amount of myself going into schooling. So, you know, I have a big test coming up. Like right now, I'm at the end of the year, so all of my end of year tests are going to be in the next month or two. More than the next month. I only got 4 weeks of school left. I have my first end of year test today. So because of that, though, once I'm out of school, I'm able to put a lot more time into the show, and that does include bigger series. I'm excited for that. But that will be in a while. But by the end of this month, I plan on having an episode come out about the U-2. That'll be about the basic history of the U-2, so I can then, once I have my big series for SSBTA, do an episode about it more in depth. That's the general idea. But though, until then, I am Joe the Teenage Astronaut, signing off.